This week I talk about alcohol, pre-workout and stretching. Hey guys, welcome to MotoFit TV, episode number 14. Got a few questions to smash through. So last MotoFit TV was just me doing a heap of speaking on arm pump. So we're going to go back to smashing through some questions today. But before we get into the questions, I wanted to talk about a little bit about these bad boys. So looking at shoes. So these are just some new shoes that I picked up over the last couple of days, which I've been testing out. But one of the main things you want to make sure with your training, and this is more specific for training rather than actually racing, is you want to make sure you've got a shoe that has minimal support in the bottom. Okay, so you pretty much want a flat sole. So if you look at this shoe, it completely collapses over itself. Like the whole thing you can scrunch up into a little ball, okay, like this. That's what you want to be able to do with your shoes. So if you're wearing runners for your training and all the stuff that I've been going through, put them in your cupboard or in the bin because the shoes creating a lot of instability, okay? So all that foam and everything and support, as they call it, which they sell you on, is not actually helping you, it's actually making your feet weaker. So if that's something you're interested in finding out more, there's actually a video on my YouTube channel which you can go to, so go to my YouTube channel and have a look there. Otherwise, you wanna make sure that you've got shoes that are fairly flexible. So that brought up a good point because I just got some new shoes. So you can see with these, they flex both ways, right? You can pretty much fold this thing right up into itself like that. So if you can't do something similar with that with your shoe, okay, and you're probably struggling with most runners just to get this front bit back, then you're hindering your performance and also putting yourself at risk of injury as well for weight training. So that's just a side note for today, bit of extra bonus material. So for today's episode, Jeremy's going to give us our first question. So what's our first question?
Matt Brown asked, does alcohol consumption during the week affect arm pump on the weekend?
Okay, cool. So good question. What was his name, sorry? Matt. So good question, Matt. So alcohol consumption will affect your arm pump in terms of that it's going to affect your energy levels. Okay, so if you're concerned about arm pump, then you need to, first of all, go back to last week's video and have a look at that because that's solely on arm pump if you haven't looked at it already. But alcohol is going to affect that because it's going to affect your level of energy and level of hydration. Okay, so when we've got low levels of energy, low levels of hydration, it's like running your motorbike with no oil in it. Okay, it's going to go for a little bit, but it's not going to go very well. Same thing's going to happen with your arms and with your body. So the alcohol has an effect on your arm pump because it's affecting your energy and hydration, which means your body's going to blow out a lot quicker than what it normally would. So in terms of alcohol, it's not something you should be consuming. If you're serious about your training and serious about your riding and racing, then that's something you want to move away from. Obviously having beers the night before is not going to be ideal for race day. If you're serious about your race day and you want to be able to step up your riding and racing, then you need to focus on getting in whole foods, getting in that water in, not even thinking about alcohol, and focusing on what you want. Another point, so I've got no idea of the context of this question, Matt, so I could be going down the wrong rabbit hole, but in terms of alcohol, you want to make sure if you're having troubles being able to, or you drink a fair bit, or it's part of your lifestyle and you're having trouble breaking from that, you need to be able to have a look at your goals and what you're working towards. So it might be lose weight, might be gain weight, might be ride faster. If you have enough motivation and drive, you can give up just about anything. Okay, if you've got that motivation and drive to get somewhere, whether that's smoking, whether that's eating chocolates, whether that's whatever it is, it doesn't matter, any type of habit. If there's enough drive and motivation towards that goal that you want, and you've got a system and you can see the progress to get there, then it's going to make it much easier. So my suggestion would be finding a system if that's you. If it's not, that's cool too, but yes, it is definitely going to affect your performance on race day. So that was an easy one. So what was our next question, Jeremy?
Mitch Walker asked, are supplements and pre-workouts worth the money? And if so, what should I look for?
Cool, awesome, Mitch. So supplementation is something that gets peddled a lot, okay, in all industries, specifically fitness. And especially over the last 10 years or so, now we're seeing like supplement stores. We're seeing stores that only specialize in selling supplements. The problem comes with riders and racers is they go to someone that sells supplements and ask them for nutritional advice. And that person doesn't give you nutritional advice, they give you the supplement because that's what they're selling, that's their business. Okay, they're not going to sell you a nutrition plan. They're not going to help you to create a system to systemize your training and systemize your nutrition. They're not going to tell you, hey, don't buy my products, go and work on your nutrition first and then come and see me and work with supplements, because that's their business. They're going to tell you that the supplements are awesome. So what you need to be able to do is, first of all, you need to nail your nutrition. You need to nail the systems, you need to be consistent with it, you need to have a system set up that you're able to stick to, and you need to know how to time your foods correctly with your training, with your riding, with your racing, with your recovery, with your breakfast, lunch, dinner, how you're feeling throughout the day, and make sure that's nailed. Now 99.9% of the population, especially riders and racers, don't even have that nailed. Okay, they jump straight for the easy option, straight in terms of supplements. So there are certain supplements that you can use and some that we do recommend for our races, but I'm not going to get into that because it's no good if we haven't nailed everything else. If you haven't had that help and support and you haven't nailed the timing, the structure, the systems, and you haven't been able to do that consistently for the last 6-12 months, day in, day out, week in, week out, ride in, ride out, then you have no business looking at supplementation. You need to be able to focus on nailing the foods. So just be careful that you're not looking at supplements as a quick fix to avoid actually doing the work with nutrition. So things like supplementation and doing certain stretches and having special foods and all these things, they're all just quick fixes, so they grab everyone's attention. And it looks like it's the easier option compared to doing the hard work. But the hard work and having the systems is what gives you the long-term result. So in terms of supplements, like you could take a pre-workout and you're going to feel amazing at training, okay? You could take some sort of recovery drink and that's going to help you with your recovery, but at the end of the day, it's not the real problem, okay? That's kind of like just a band-aid fix. We're not fixing the underlying problem, which is the structures and systems you have in place to make sure that your nutrition's on track. That's the most important thing. So I would say, depending on where you're at, but if you're like majority of the riding and racing population, then I would say yes, you're wasting your money on supplements and you need to be able to focus on eating whole foods and eating correctly. Once you've nailed that process and you can do that consistently and you have a system there, I don't mean just do it for race day or just do it a few days before race day. I mean consistently, day in, day out, and it's part of your lifestyle and what you do, then you can look at supplementation and be able to invest in that side of things. But up until that point, don't even worry about it. So what's our next question?
Peter K asked, what difference would a good moto-inspired stretching routine make to my riding?
Cool, awesome, Peter. So stretching, okay, it's going to be a little bit debatable, and I hope some of you don't take this out of context in terms of what I'm saying, but stretching, in terms of just general stretching, hanging at the end range of motion of a muscle, is a waste of time. So the reason being that particular muscle groups are tight for a specific reason. Okay, you didn't just come out of the womb having tight muscles. Okay, if you look at it, if you guys have, any of you here, or any of you know, if you have kids, sweet. If you don't have kids, cousins, anyone else that you know that has kids, have a look around. Have a look at how children move. Have a look at how babies move. And you'll notice they can do a perfect squat, they can put their hands over their head, they can move around, they can sit in the squat all day and play with their toys, they can get into all these weird positions. Now it's not because they're young that they're flexible. It's because they haven't been ruined by sitting in a chair through education and schooling and sitting in cars and doing all the rest of the stuff. They've been left to their own devices to play and move around and go on playgrounds designed to do what we're actually made to do. It's only as you get older that you start to restrict your movement. So think about the amount of movement you did when you were 3 years old, when you played in your cubby house, you climbed trees, you went on the playground, and now think about the amount of movement you do. You sit in the car on the way to work, you sit down for breakfast, you get home and watch TV, you're at the track and you sit down, you're not walking around and doing the things you used to be able to do. Maybe you have an office job and you sit down, maybe you work in machinery, okay? We're a lot more stationary than what we're designed to be. So it's not that you're getting older that you get tighter and less flexible, it's just that you're moving less. So don't think that kids are super mobile just because they're young, okay? It's because they move. So that's the first thing to note. The second thing to note is when you have a tight muscle group, it's tight for a specific reason, okay? It's not tight because that's just how it is, okay? So if you've got tight hamstrings, which every second person says they've got tight hamstrings, okay, and they don't even understand what it means, if you've got tight hamstrings and you're continuing to stretch them, that's all well and good, but also know they're going to go back to their normal size, okay? Because it's the movement and the structures you've been doing which have actually reduced the strength or tightened the muscle group. So you can stretch your muscle, and then by the time you've got back on the start line, it's going to be tight again, okay? So you've just wasted your time. So what you need to do is develop practices during the day and during the week that allow you to move better and get into better positions. Maybe that means when you're at work, if you have an office job, that every half an hour you go and do 10 squats. Okay, maybe that means you do a few push-ups every half an hour. Maybe that means you just get up out of your chair every half an hour and go for a bit of a walk around. It's all based on being able to move, being able to move around and being able to get that movement happening, because that is what allows the muscles to be able to move, to become more elastic. Okay, so if you're not moving, they're going to tighten up. So it doesn't matter how much stretching you do, it's all going to, it's not going to work, it's not going to be effective. So the best way to be able to encourage that movement is through strength and conditioning. So training properly, getting the right help, having someone to be able to help you with your training so that you're moving correctly. So things like squatting, deadlifting, bent over rows, overhead press, all the movements which replicate what we're doing in day-to-day life, making sure you're performing those correctly, because you'll find if you're being consistent with your squats and your weight training and moving correctly, that's all going to transfer into your day-to-day life, and you're automatically going to be a heap more flexible. So in terms of flexibility advice specific for race day, there's not really much I can give you just from our show at the moment without having a little bit more context or getting to meet you one-on-one and having a decent chat, and that goes for everyone, because everyone's case is going to be different. You can go and stretch, I can give you like a hamstring stretch and a calf stretch and a shoulder stretch and all this sort of stuff, but by the time you do the stretch and actually get on the line, all the muscles are going to be tight again because you've had this habit over your lifetime which has made them tight in the first place. Okay, if you've been sitting down and you've had an office job for the last 20-30 years, doing a 20-second hamstring stretch is not going to undo 30 years of tightness. So I guess that's the main thing to be able to focus on with stretching and mobility. So that's just something to think about. It's very postural, thinking about what's happening in day-to-day life, what's happening with your training, making sure you're performing your training movements correctly, you're being consistent. There's a whole lot more to it behind that rather than just stretching, because you're just going to put in the time, you're not going to get the results, and you're not going to perform at your best, which is the most important thing. So there are a few questions for today, so smash through a few things. So in terms of shoes, make sure, that's one thing for today. One thing I want to try and push a little bit more is making sure you're getting some better shoes. Okay, so if you're training and you've got runners, ditch the runners. Okay, some shoes that you can, these are Nike, I think they're called Bionics, but the other shoes that I had just before these, which I had for 2 years and flogged the shit out of them every single day for the last 2 years, was the Nike Metcons. So they're a bit of an investment, and that's fine because they're going to last you forever. They're going to allow your foot to move a shit ton better. They're going to allow you to get stronger, allow you to be able to move a bit better, and all in all be able to perform a lot better with your training. So that's what we want to work on. So make sure you have a look into that if you haven't already, if you're just wearing your sneakers or your general runners to the gym. So I hope you enjoyed today's MotoFit TV episode. We're also looking for videographers. So Jeremy has got a promotion, so he's working with some big companies in terms of media. So I want to get a bit more media stuff done, and we need a little bit more help with some of the stuff that we're doing with Jeremy. So if you know someone that's a videographer, that's good with cameras, good with editing, good at doing photos and all the rest of the stuff that you see us put up, and they're into that stuff specifically, even in motorsport, that would be even better. Then tag them below for me, or even get them to send me a PM, send me an email, contact me, whatever it is, so we can hook up and we can obviously help to support them with what they're doing, and they can help to support us well and work together and be able to bring even better and even more content to you guys. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you next week. See you guys.